Welcome back, everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here for today's explainer. Look, if you're gearing up for your professional exams, especially the Strategic Business Leader exam, or if you just really want to nail down the absolute backbone of corporate governance, well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we are diving into the ultimate masterclass on decoding internal control systems and risk management. We're going to break down the heavy theory, walk through some super memorable real-world examples, and basically give you the exact hooks you need to maximize your points on exam day. All right, let's jump right in.
So here's our quick roadmap for the explainer today. First, decoding internal controls. Second, risk management in practice. Third, we'll get the COSO cube explained. Fourth is objective setting and risks. Fifth, control activities in action. And finally, number 6, information and monitoring.
Okay, let's dive right into part 1, decoding internal controls.
So picture this. You've got a business. Let's call them Maker Co. They are a massive manufacturing company, and they are experiencing this crazy, rapid growth. I mean, they're hiring tons of new staff, expanding at lightning speed, but in this massive rush just to get products out the door, they completely ignore their internal controls. Processes are literally bypassed on purpose, brand new staff are just thrown into these highly critical roles without any proper training whatsoever. So what happens? Total chaos, right? Now, this right here is a classic exam scenario designed to test your commercial acumen, because growth without control is pretty much a guaranteed recipe for disaster.
Now, to actually prevent that kind of chaos, we need a formal structure. The 2013 COSO framework defines internal control as a process affected by an entity's board of directors, management, and other personnel. Now, pay close attention here, because there's a really crucial distinction. It's designed to provide reasonable assurance regarding operations, reporting, and compliance objectives. Notice I said reasonable, not absolute assurance. Guys, this is a massive trap in exams. You can never, ever guarantee that nothing will go wrong. But a solid system, it gives management that much-needed confidence that things are generally staying on track.
And here is an absolute golden exam tip for you. When you're sitting there reading a case study and something goes terribly, terribly wrong, always look at the human element. For strategic decisions, controls are often going to be based on subjective judgment. And you know what? Poor judgment at literally any level is a massive control weakness. Often, a total breakdown doesn't come from some random computer glitch. It stems directly from poor subjective judgment by management. Internal control isn't just a dusty manual of rules. It relies so heavily on the tone at the top and the everyday choices that actual people make.
All right, moving right along to part 2, risk management in practice.
So, let's actually contrast two vastly different organizations to see how this plays out. On one hand, we have Maker Co., our wildly expanding manufacturer. Their risks are super operational, right? We're talking untrained staff, poor separation of duties, where one poor guy might be doing the job of 3 people. But then, on the other hand, we have the Care Services Company, or CSC. Now, CSC outsources care services from the government, so their risks are entirely different. They face incredibly intense compliance and reputational risks. Think about it. If a carer misses a mandatory 30-minute visit or fails a strict hygiene standard, the consequence isn't just a delayed widget. They're dealing with vulnerable people and extremely strict government regulators. And if CSC fails to implement sound controls, the fallout is incredibly severe. Missing those care standards could instantly trigger major legal claims or just massive fines and penalties. Even worse, they could face intense regulatory scrutiny, lose their operating license, or lose those government contracts entirely, which could actually lead to compulsory dissolution. A sound system of internal control is literally what safeguards the shareholders' investment and basically ensures the company's survival in such a heavily regulated industry. It's high stakes.
That brings us to part 3, the COSO cube explained.
And this graphic brilliantly illustrates the entire concept we've been talking about. This is the 2013 COSO Framework Cube, and trust me, you absolutely want to commit this visual to memory for your exam. Okay, look at the top face of the cube. These are the organization's main objectives: strategy, operations, reporting, and compliance. Got it? Now, look at the front face. That shows the 8 components of risk management, starting right from the internal environment at the top, down through risk assessment, all the way to monitoring at the bottom. And finally, the side of the cube shows the actual entity structure, right from entity level down to division, business unit, and subsidiary. The true beauty of this cube is that it shows you risk management isn't just some isolated department. It literally slices through every single objective, every component, and every level of the business all at the exact same time.
Okay, let's zoom in a bit for part 4, objective setting and risks.
So as we saw on the top of the cube, Every organization sets objectives in 4 broad areas. First, strategy, which obviously aligns with those high-level goals. Second, operations, which is all about efficiency and profitability. Third, financial reporting, meaning reliable financial statements. And fourth, compliance with laws and regulations. But here is what's absolutely vital to remember for your exams. Financial and compliance objectives are usually driven by external standards, meaning they are largely within the entity's control to actually manage. But operational objectives? Oh, those are highly vulnerable to external events that are completely outside of management's control, like, say, a sudden global supply chain collapse.
Let's look at a classic consultant case study to see how this works. Imagine you're advising a board, and their company has just expanded overseas and rolled out this massive new IT system. The finance director is practically tearing their hair out, warning everyone that financial reporting is going to be severely delayed. So, are they right? Oh, absolutely. Rapid expansion really strains existing controls. Introducing a new IT system carries massive data conversion risks. Plus, expanded foreign operations bring in all sorts of crazy complexities, like foreign currency transactions. Basically, your finance team is going to be totally overwhelmed, and the risk of inaccurate financial reporting just absolutely skyrockets.
Now, let's look at how we fix this in Part 5, Control Activities in Action.
Listen, if you want to score some really easy marks in an exam, I need you to write down this acronym right now. Ready? It's PIPSA. P-I-P-S-A. It stands for Performance Reviews, Information Processing, Physical Controls, Segregation of Duties, and Authorization. Guys, this is absolute gold for your exams. Seriously, whenever a case study asks you to recommend control activities, just mentally run through PIPSA. You need to stop fraud, suggest segregation of duties. You need to protect expensive physical assets, suggest physical controls, like locks and passwords. It's that simple, but it works every time.
Let's actually apply this back to our care services company, CSC, to really lock in those commercial acumen marks. Now, we can split controls into preventative, meaning stopping the error before it even happens, and detective, which is finding the error after it unfortunately occurs. For CSC, a really strong preventative control is building a solid culture of care right from the top down. We're talking a strict code of ethics and rigorous recruitment. But we obviously need detective controls too. We could, for example, mandate carer reporting systems where staff have to log exactly how much time they spent with a patient. Or, even better, we could introduce service user feedback surveys and then directly link carer remuneration to their actual feedback scores. Now, that is exactly how you apply theory to solve a real-world commercial problem.
And that brings us to our final section, Part 6, Information and Monitoring.
You see, information is essentially the lifeblood of risk management. But here's the catch. Not all data is actually good information. For a board to make the correct decisions, their information systems have to capture reliable data. It needs to be appropriate and relevant. It has to be timely. I mean, a month-end report really needs to actually be ready at month-end, right? It must be current, complete, accessible, and accurate. But notice the real emphasis on concise here. This is huge. Giving someone way too much information can actually be just as misleading as missing data. If you hand a board member a dense 500-page operational report, they are simply not going to see the wood for the trees.
So the crucial point really boils down to this. How does the board actually check if this whole system even works? Well, the Turnbolt report gives us the ultimate board assessment. Every single year, the board must ask 3 fundamental questions. Number 1, have our reporting objectives actually been achieved reliably? Number 2, are our operations genuinely effective and efficient? And number 3, has the firm fully complied with all applicable laws and regulations? The board just cannot sit back and rely on some embedded process. They have to actively review and report on these internal controls in their annual report. And that brings us right to the end of our deep dive today. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final, somewhat provocative thought. As a future leader, or maybe a high-level consultant, if your firm suddenly faces a massive internal failure, don't just immediately point fingers at the software or the junior staff. Stop and ask yourself, will the board's subjective judgment, their tone, their culture, their lack of oversight actually be to blame? Think about that. Make sure you review your notes on PIPSA, clearly picture that COSO cube in your mind, and always remember that a truly sound control culture starts straight from the top. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I will catch you on the next explainer.